I'm actually here representing the Irish Medical Graduate Training Board, where I'm chair of that board. And that's a body made up of 13 training bodies, postgraduate training bodies in Ireland, and also, very importantly, the Health Service Executive, which will be equivalent here to the NHS. And that was formed about 5 years ago. And the idea was to put structures and programs in place for overseas doctors coming into Ireland to do part or all of their training, whereas before that it was done very much on an ad hoc basis. Basically, there are two ways of coming into Ireland, and I'm just going to go through those quite quickly this morning, and then I'll be very happy to take questions when we're finished this session. Just to remind everybody where Ireland is. We're not part of the United Kingdom. We're that little dot there across the water. We're a country with a population of 4.5 million, which is with a kind of a strong history of medical education. With the government, despite the downturn in the economy over the last years, has continued to pour significant investment into education in all sectors, and primarily also in medicine at an undergraduate level and a postgraduate level. We have 6 undergraduate medical schools, and I'm not here to speak on their behalf, but they all take a number of overseas students into their programs. We have 3 in Dublin, 1 in Cork, 1 in Galway, and 1 in Belfast, and also a new one in Limerick as well. We have established and internationally recognised postgraduate training programs. All the training bodies are involved, are the 3 biggest ones anyway, the College of Surgeons, the College of Physicians and the College of Anaesthetists, have extensive overseas programs where we would be involved in providing training, education, assessment in those locations, which I'll come to later on, but also people from there come to Ireland to do part of their training. 3 years ago, the Health Service Executive, under the guidance of Professor Eilish McGovern, set up this programme whereby people from, in this case, the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Pakistan, we would have a very large kind of number of doctors from Pakistan coming into Ireland for the last 50 years, many of whom now have decided to remain in Ireland. But the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Pakistan approached the HSE, because they were concerned with the brain drain, that people were coming to Ireland to stay and wouldn't return. So we set up this innovative programme between the HSE and the CPSP, whereby people would come to Ireland for a period of 2 years at the midpoint in their training. So they would do 2 years or 3 years in Pakistan, then they would come to Ireland for 2 years, and then critically they would return back to Pakistan to complete their training and then become part of the workforce there. When they're in Ireland, they are treated as trainees. Before that, they used to come on an ad hoc basis, and some would get into training programs, some wouldn't get into training programs. It's become increasingly difficult for a doctor just to arrive in Ireland, or for that matter in the UK, and expect to be able to get on a training program. Our labour laws insist that we must give preference to EU doctors first. So the majority of places in our case will be taken up by Irish doctors, and after that we have to give preference to doctors from the rest of Europe, and after that what remains would go to non-EU doctors. But those posts became very, very few. So the people come to Ireland, they do a 2-year programme, customised curriculum, that's also a continuation of their programme in Pakistan. When they're here, they go into paid posts. They're treated as I said, trainees, but they're also providing a service, so they're actually paid at the same level as an Irish doctor going through the training programme. They have to get registration, and that has always been the biggest challenge. So the Medical Council, to facilitate this programme, set up a different layer of registration, what's called a supervised division, which allows people to stay in Ireland for a maximum period of 2 years only. So they get their visas based on being on that register, and then they stay for 2 years to do the training, and then, as I said, they return home to Pakistan. The process works as follows, and again, this is organised through the HSE, but in conjunction with the training bodies as well. The Pakistan College nominates the trainees that they think are suitable. So an advertisement is placed all over Pakistan, normally in November, December of each year, and it attracts thousands of applications. The college in Karachi then determines who are suitable to be sent forward for interview. So in our case this year in anaesthesia, we interviewed by Skype up to 60 doctors, of whom we've chosen, I think, 15 to 20 to come to Ireland for the 2-year programme. When they're chosen, they complete a number of documents which are sent directly to the Medical Council for registration. Normal registration, I think, both with the GMC and with the Irish Medical Council, can take anything up to 12 months. But through this process, it only takes 6 to 8 weeks, which means that the people are interviewed normally January and February. They get their visas, they get their registration, and then they come to Ireland in July ready to start. As I said, they're treated as trainees, and the Health Service Executive fund the Irish training body to train these people. Sorry, go back to that one again. They fund the training body, and our role then as training bodies are to put these people in university teaching hospitals for 1 year, and in what we call peripheral hospitals for another year. So they spend 1 year normally outside of Dublin, and then a 2nd year in Dublin, following the same training programme that a normal trainee would, but also complying with their own training programme. We started the programme in 2013, and we just started it in 3 specialties. We started it in anaesthesia, emergency medicine, and surgery. And we took across 27 trainees. And it really was done on a trial basis, just to see, could we manage it, was it a success? And from the Pakistan perspective, were they happy with the way the programme was running? There are no costs to the Pakistan College at all. All the costs are covered by the Irish Health Board. This year, we've expanded the number of specialties, as you'll see, and there are over 100 trainees from Pakistan due to arrive in Dublin at the beginning of July. So the progress that has been made in year 2, there are regular meetings between the HSE, the training bodies, and with the college in Pakistan. We would meet with them by video conference maybe 5 or 6 times a year. They also come to Dublin twice a year for formal meetings, one in December, one in June. When they're over in Dublin, they meet with all the trainees. Because this programme has expanded, we've had to appoint an office to manage it for us, and we've also appointed a project manager who oversees the programmes, liaises with the trainees, liaises with the college in Pakistan, but also liaises with the training bodies in Dublin. And she's the point of contact for processing the doctors' visas and for getting them registered with the Medical Council. She also organises accommodation, pick up at the airport, advice on where to go and where not to go, and so on. As I said, the HSE fund the salary for the trainees, and kind of even with the downturn in the economy, medical salaries in Ireland are still very reasonable. A doctor at a year 3 level into their training programme would expect to earn somewhere between 60 and 80,000 euros per annum, which is about 50,000 pounds sterling. The HSE reimburse the trainees their cost of their flights, their registration fees, their visa and permit fees, and they also provide accommodation for up to 2 weeks when they arrive in Dublin or when they're travelling outside of Dublin to allow them get settled. They also refund any transfer costs if people have to move from one hospital to another. I suppose you'd have to ask the question as to why the HSE are doing that. There is a gap in Ireland, as in we are not producing enough of our own doctors to fill our service needs. We also have a problem where a lot of our own doctors, when they qualify, are emigrating to Australia, to Canada, to New Zealand. So we do have a very serious service gap. So within the Irish health sector, approximately, certainly in anaesthesia, in my case, nearly 50% of the doctors who are providing anaesthesia services across all kind of levels and across all hospitals are non-EU doctors. And the HSE felt that by being able to offer a training program that was supervised and that was controlled and restricted, that it would attract people across the board. So we say in the context of Libya, this is something that might prove attractive. We've also had contacts from Sudan and parts of Europe as well. Hungary have also expressed an interest in going down this route with us. So that's a very nice way for somebody to come into Ireland to do the training. There are other ways as well, and that's directly with the training bodies. Now, this is a much more expensive route, because for people to come in on that route, they have to be paid by their government. So in the case of Libya, if somebody wants to come in and do geriatric medicine, they could come into Ireland, but their salary would have to be paid by the Libyan government for the duration of their time that they were here in Ireland. Again, the HSE and the Medical Council are keen for people to only spend up to 2 years in Ireland. But in some cases, in some specialist cases, people can do their entire training programme, they can do part of their training programme, or they can do their subspecialty programme. So at the moment, we would have doctors from Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Malaysia, Oman, mostly in the Gulf states, who would be funded by their government at quite a high level, who would pay the training bodies to train them, and who would pay their salary. But they're in clinical posts, they're doing clinical work. The concept of the supernumerary doctor can no longer exist in Ireland. That is now literally, it's kind of because of a problem we had about 4 or 5 years ago. That concept is no longer accepted. So training is offered at all different levels. It's offered at a BST level, it's offered at registrar level, it's offered at SPR level or HST, or at fellowship level as well. It depends on the specialty. In anaesthesia, we only have vacancies. We train approximately 40 to 50 trainees a year, nearly all of whom are EU. So the number of people that we have from overseas in our training programs, we'd have somewhere between 10 and 15, but they're all at subspecialty level. They've all qualified in their home country, have come to Ireland to do obstetric anaesthesia, pediatric anaesthesia, cardiothoracic anaesthesia. Surgery and in the medical disciplines, they would have more kind of vacancies, for want of a better word. And in those specialties, people are doing their entire training in Ireland. The training available, I'm obviously going to say that, I think it's of a very high standard and is internationally well recognised. And it's much sought after. We have no problem filling the vacant posts that we have, and we'd hope to see that continue in the future. They're kind of as well as having access to training, people also have access to do research. We provide masters in leadership for clinicians, and masters in bereavement studies and all sorts of areas. PhDs in pain medicine and things like that. So while they're in Ireland, as well as getting clinically trained, they're also the option to take on other postgraduate qualifications. That's a list of the countries that we're involved with at the moment. And the only way somebody can come into Ireland now is that they must come in via government to government, or training body to ministry, or training body to university. As I said, it's very difficult, almost impossible for somebody just to land in Ireland from, we say, Libya, and hope to get into a training program, or even hoping to get a job. Those days are gone, and they would probably not even get a visa. So it's kind of anybody, and we do have a kind of small issue at the moment with some doctors who have arrived from Libya who didn't go through this route, and we're trying to facilitate them. But going forward, the only way for somebody to come into Ireland is really by government to government, or by training body to ministry. And I think that's it. Thank you.